The first topic we'll talk about is global action filters. Action filters themselves have been around since the first release of ASP.NET MVC. They allow you to add pre- and post-processing to an action and also to the execution of the action result. For instance, I can add a handle error attribute to a specific controller action, and now any uncaught exception that is thrown out of that action will be processed by the handle error attribute, and it can render a friendly error view instead of the yellow screen of death that usually appears in ASP.NET when you have an uncaught exception that shows the user exception details that they're probably not interested in. I can also apply an attribute at the controller level. That means these two attributes will be in effect for every action that executes inside of that controller. There are a number of built-in action filters for MVC, action filters to do authorization, to handle errors, to do output caching. You can also write your own custom action filter. All you need to do is derive a class from the action filter attribute base class, and then you can override one of these methods that you're interested in. For example, if you wanted to do some processing before an action executes, you can override onActionExecuting. You'll receive a parameter that gives you information about what's being passed into that action and what action is about to be invoked. You can also catch onActionExecuted for after the action has produced an action result, and there's two methods to pre- and post-process the action result execution. Again, everything I've described has been available since the first release of MVC. What's new in ASP.NET MVC 3 is the ability to apply a global action filter. That is, if I have an attribute that I want to apply on every controller action that executes inside of my application, up until MVC 3 I had to figure out a way to get that attribute on every controller class, perhaps by deriving from a base class that was derived from controller, and that base class has the attribute in place. But with MVC 3, during application startup, you have the ability to register a global filter. The global filter will execute on every action request. The way you do this is to instantiate the action filter that you need and add it to the globalfilters.filters collection. Let's take a look at what happens when an unhandled exception escapes from the index action of our home controller. The way the application is currently configured, there is no handle error action filter to catch this error. In addition, in our web.config file, we have the custom errors mode turned on. I'm going to run the application, and what we'll see is affectionately known as the yellow screen of death. This is probably not a page that you want to show your end users or customers because they're not going to be able to make sense of it. What we'd like to show them instead is a custom error view that we have that might have some information on who they can contact to resolve this error. By default, the handle error attribute, when we have it in effect, is going to render the error view error.cshtml, and we just have that in the shared views folder so that it can be used everywhere. Let's go into global.asax.cs. By default, when you start a new MVC application, there will be a line of code inside of the application start event that will call a method called register global filters and pass in the filters collection. This is the opportunity to register any global filters that you need. By default, an MVC application will register that handle error attribute. I took it out for the purposes of this demo to show you the error screen, but let's add it back just by saying filters.add, new handle error attribute. I can do a build, come back and refresh our view, and now we get our custom error view that we could tweak to give the users some more additional information on how to resolve the problem. Note that this only works when you have custom errors on. So the filters that I've added to this global filter collection are in effect for everything that executes inside of my application, and I could add additional filters in here now that I wanted applied at a global level.